And we're live. Good evening. This is the Nifty Alpha. I'm Pio. I'm here with my co-host, the sophisticated art speculator, now known as Captain Kix. And this is the NFT market and trade talk show where we dive deep into trending projects, trends, and just upcoming news and information within the NFT space. The show's really designed to help make you a better trader. I'm fumbling over my words today. In today's episode, we want to dive deep into the top 10 NFT trading strategies that you need to know. As usual, if you do enjoy the content, make sure that you lick the like button, but more importantly, smash the subscribe button. Do it. You know you want to. And as usual, nothing in this show is ever financial advice. Do your own research. The NFT market is incredibly risky. Sophisticated art speculator, how you doing?
Doing great. Had an awesome weekend. This week's off to a great start. So I'm feeling real good right now. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great, man. I'm ready to kick this off. We are talking about the top 10 NFT trading strategies that any trader needs to know. So appropriate that you're on the show for this one. Obviously, you have the most trading experience out of the the Nifty Alpha members. So I want to pick your brain. We've got 10. The first one is find your optimal trading strategy. So I'm going to display this on screen. Find your optimal trading strategy. Can you share a little bit about what you mean by this and in your mind, what finding your optimal trading strategy means?
Yeah, definitely. So I think we put this one first because it kind of dictates how you handle everything in terms of your investing and trading in NFTs. And this is something that you'll learn over time, but every single person has a different type of trading strategy. A lot of people, they're going to be good at just minting and then just flipping as soon as they get 50% or 2x, right? You're going to have people that are really good at finding great projects, and most of their gains comes from hitting a few misses, but they find a project that 10x's, right? Their way of trading NFTs is going to be, completely different. And the problem is that a lot of people, they sort of try to be a jack of all trades, and they want to be minting a bunch of things and trying to flip them, but they also want to be finding good projects to hold on to long term. And they also want to be trading secondary. It's hard to be good at all of these things at the same time. So like the first and foremost thing is finding your optimal trading strategy, and that can change over time. Pio, you started out spending a lot of time just with buying and long-term holding. Recently you've been buying and flipping more, and you've been doing well, but what I've noticed is that you've been doing less of buy and holding, which is great because you kind of have to focus on one strategy. Not to say you can't do a little buying and holding, but you're not right now. It seems like a lot of your energy is focused on the trading side, and that's why you're getting better at it.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. The cool thing about the buy and hold thing is that it's not like that goes away and that's something that you can't do, especially once conviction is already built up into different areas of the market. Give you a quick example that's very relevant given the timing. Yesterday, I minted 2 open editions by Micah Johnson in the Aku the Moon God series. It was chapter 7. This is a project that I've been buying since February. Okay, so not that many people in the NFT space, like, unless they're CryptoPunk holders, can say that they've been holding stuff since February. So, pay attention to that. This is a 10-piece series by an artist. I've bought into the project since February. I'm all in. That's not going to change. I haven't suddenly started flipping that project. When new chapters come out, number 7 out of 10 yesterday, I buy it, I put it in the vault. That's it. I don't think about it. I don't have to look at the price. If anything, if the price went down, I would just buy more because of the high level of conviction. But you're absolutely right, is that I made adjustments in the sense that I started locking in profits. I started looking into mint and flip. I started really paying attention to projects that are emerging on the market with the intent to get in early, which is very, very important. I think everybody can agree on that. So yes, that's my long-winded answer to say I have been making adjustments. It has been working well, but I haven't abandoned ship on buying high conviction plays and holding them for the long term.
Totally. And you can do them both at the same time. I do that in my regards, but just like a fact, I've probably made 50% of my NFT profits buying and then selling the NFTs in under 1 week. Probably
Yep.
half of all of my profits, if not more, have come from that. So, finding what you're good at, just like anything in life, and leaning into it in the NFT space is going to be smart. You can also think about that in terms of categories as well. Trading game projects is different than trading traditional collectibles, and finding your optimal trading, pattern between those is important. Look at Easy Eats. He's found his optimal trading strategy. He's a flipper on Solana, right? He doesn't spend much time on Ethereum. He does some trades here and there, but he spends probably 80-90% of his time on Solana. And look what's happened. He's made a lot of money because that was an intentional decision on his part. He saw, okay, I'm trading well here. I'm going to go all in. I'm going to optimize on trading Solana. He understands the market. He understands the ecosystem. And now he's one of the best Solana traders. So that's why this one's so important.
Yeah, and he's all in on that because it's like, you can't be in the NBA and the MLB at the same time, right? You're either a basketball player or you're a baseball player. Obviously, you can be skilled in both sports, but if you want to actually maximize this game, the game that we're playing, trading NFTs, right? Super Machiavellian space. There's a ton of money on the line. Everybody's trying to get theirs, right? Try to win themselves. And a lot of people are doing it literally for their livelihoods. It basically doesn't get more intense than that, even though it's digital, decentralized. Our lives aren't on the line. Our monetary lives kind of are on the line. Yep. So Easy dedicating all of his time to Solana, that's a switch. He saw an opportunity. He saw his skill set lending itself to having success in that space. Kind of a no-brainer.
I'm totally with you there. And I'm gonna kick around on our list, and then I'll sing it over. I'll send it over to you. But next we should talk about not buying into secondary FOMO and secondary hype. So Pio, can you talk a little bit about that?
So you throw to me.
No, because you've actually been good at. You've been on the other side. You've been selling into the secondary FOMO hype, which is how you make money, right, versus this. So if you want to talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, I mean, I've still found a way. I still bought one damn top, even though I'm on a crazy streak. I still found a way to buy a top on Croaks, even though I was earlier on Croaks. I still decided to buy one more top, throw one more in the bag. But yeah, basically, look, there's instances when FOMO kicks in. People hear, you hear people talk about it a lot. I see people in the Discord talk about it as well now, where, they are watching a project pump, as they do sometimes, right? Like projects can pump, and that's where people make a lot of money. So they're watching a project pump, and then they decide to buy. When in reality, the time when the project is pumping, so I've almost had to do this shift where if this inner FOMO instinct is pressuring me to buy, I have to sort of recognize that and think right now is actually a good time to sell. Because I'll use Immutable Apes X as an example. I minted them, so that's getting in early, right? If you bought on the primary market, right? They ripped from their mint price of 0.07 to 0.15. I FOMO bought one at 0.15, and that ended up being the top. So I was in early, but I still FOMO bought one at the top, raised my cost basis, and never got back to that top. So it was just a complete bag fumble move, right? So you have to understand that the wins happen when you get in early. There are instances where a pump keeps on pumping and buying into the FOMO actually did make sense. But those are so few and far between that it's not something that you can depend on. So you want to kind of fall back on these fundamental principles to not, put yourself in a position to be susceptible to FOMO buying a top.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I'd be bold enough to say that probably buying the secondary FOMO is an 80% plus losing strategy, in the short term. Of course, if you're in an amazing project, Apes retraced up and down 9 different times before they got to where they were today. So, right, on a long-term horizon, buying even in some of the, big booms, you still would have worked out well. But 80-90% of the time, you're buying the top, and you're right, it's such an emotional thing. When you're feeling like you're feeling like you're missing out on gains, and you jump in purely emotionally, you're the exit liquidity for someone, either a scalp trader, or someone that minted. And that's the thing as well, is during these big pumps in volume, they're scalp traders. Like I did it before. I used to do this trade on the Bored Ape dogs. And what I would do is whenever Bored Ape pumped, right? Because it'd have these big pumps that go from a 5 ETH floor to a 10 ETH floor in like 2 days. The dogs would trail them in a pump. And so as soon as Bored Ape started pumping, I'd buy the dogs and I'd just scalp like 1 ETH off of the trade. So if you're, but I was doing that before the volume hit in. If you're buying as the volume's going up, you're just going to lose more often than not.
Absolutely. And I saw some people in our Discord, asking if they should buy My Pet Hooligan when it was ripping,
Yeah.
No, you shouldn't have, because, it was at, it got to like a half ETH 0.6 and people were asking at 0.5, 0.55. The amount of risk there is insane, right? And even if you bought at 0.5 and sold at 0.6, you might lose money when you look at the gas and you look at the royalties.
And what was the min at,
Probably 0.1 or less. So that's where the money was
there's
made.
people already on 5Xs. They're selling into your buy there, and that's going to put so much sell pressure. This one I'm excited to talk about because I'm an avid Texas Hold'em player, and there's a lot of similarities, based on this. So the third most important NFT trading strategy, and these are all in and out of order, just the 10 that we think are the most important, is how to properly size your bets on projects. Based on your conviction and just based on good money management. So to quickly talk about like poker, how poker works is if you have a certain amount of money, let's say you have $10,000 to play Texas Hold'em, right? Like if you're playing high risk things, like multi-table tournaments where it's very easy to lose, even if you're a good player, you're not supposed to put like more than 1, maybe 2% of your stack into a tournament buy-in. So if you have $10,000, you should be playing $100 and $200 tournaments. You can look at your ETH stack similarly, right? If you have a 100 ETH portfolio, most of your plays, even with a 100 ETH portfolio, most of your average conviction plays should be like 1 to 2 ETH, right? Your high conviction plays should maybe be 5 ETH, and your super high, like there's no way this
Bored Ape Yacht Club.
Exactly. You can put in like 10 ETH, but no matter what, once you've gotten to 100 ETH stack or 50 ETH stack, you shouldn't be throwing in half your stack on one play, because that's an easy way to give back a ton of gains. You have to be smart with your sizing.
Absolutely. And I mean, I would say that I'm guilty, or at least I've definitely been guilty of this one, of overextending myself for sure. And it puts you in a tough situation where you give back gains, right? Because it's like, you can only afford to risk so much. And yeah, if it goes south, you want to have a sort of backup plan so that you can still participate, because you're gaining this knowledge, you're gaining these skills along the way. You want to be able to use them, but in order to use them, you have to have capital. So you don't want to basically gamble, right? Because people try to equate this to like gambling. Like you said, this is poker where you're playing against another player. You're not playing against the house. There's no the house.
Exactly.
It's person against person. So you just have to be better than the next person. You're not playing some rigged game where the house always wins. It's actually the player always wins, the best player though.
And the more that you play, the more volume that the more that you're going to experience volatility, where you're going to have bad stretches. I had a terrible stretch in August. And in August, I also was slightly increasing. No, not slightly. I probably increased my bet sizing by 50%. So it was super painful in August, because not only did I hit like 7 losses out of 8 bets, I hit them on big bets. Higher sizing. I went from doing 1 to 2 ETH on just my spread bets to going up, trying like 3 to 5. And I got hosed and lost 50, 70% on those bags. So then you're like, okay, August was a big down month. Versus if I was sizing like I should have been sizing, and also, better at cutting losers, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, I would have been a lot better off in the bad markets. But then also, this is important on the flip side of sizing up when you have really high conviction, not to a crazy risk level, but like if you're like worldwide web land, that was like a medium to high conviction bet for me. So I sized it up by like double what I would put into just like any other bet, maybe triple.
Random bullshit.
Exactly. And so having those tiers and being like kind of thoughtful about that, that's also going to help you avoid just making mistakes when you're in the moment. If you know, hey, like, okay, my just medium conviction plays, my max bet is a half ETH, right? Then when you go to the minter, you're not going to be minting 2 ETH of them. You're going to be minting a half ETH because you've like done that mental exercise.
Exactly. And in this game, right, this isn't stock market gains. It's not 20, 30%. You know, you're swinging for home runs. And so if you have this system to appropriately deploy capital in a way that makes sense, gives you enough exposure, right? You don't want to just buy one World Wide Web land when you have really high conviction, if you have a 15 ETH budget, right? But if you bought 5 of them at 0.1, half ETH, right? It went to half ETH. So that's like 2.5 ETH coming out the other side on that bet. And that can erase some mess ups on a mint where you minted 0.3 or 0.4 worth because you didn't have a high conviction. Well, that doesn't hurt as bad when you just racked up 2.5 ETH off World Wide Web land.
Exactly. And also by betting this way, you make sure that when you hit your big gainers, you're moving your stack size up. You're netting money because your losses you're taking are at a similar level. So you're not like, oh, I made 5 ETH on feudals, but I lost 15 ETH on this other degen project, right? Your gains start to stack up there. And I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this one, because you have some like projects that you have super high conviction in. But the fourth thing on our list is calculating the risk of the buy that you're doing or the buy strategy that you're doing. So in simple terms, you know, minting high risk, unless you have super high conviction. Buying a good project secondary, maybe a little lower risk, you know?
Absolutely. This is the NFT I have pulled up, my Mutant Ape. I'm actually decked out in Mutant Ape garb
looking
right here.
Good,
right?
Looking good.
This was at the time the biggest NFT purchase I had ever done. It was 2.825 ETH, which was a good price for these things. At a time when I didn't have that much Ethereum. I had a bunch of Bitcoin. I converted Bitcoin into Ethereum to buy this. So that tells you a lot. Like that is not rolling in Ethereum at this point, right? But it was a no-brainer for me to do it because it was at mint, right? It's not a FOMO buy. It's the highly, highly, highly anticipated Mutant Ape Yacht Club, right? Mutant Apes that have been talked about basically since Bored Apes, right? Ever heard of them, had dropped. At the time that Mutant Apes had dropped, we'd already seen a massive, massive run up on apes, like a huge run up on apes. I see Micah G just said LOL, Pio didn't even buy it. That's because at that time, the Bitcoin conversion took so long. Micah G bought it for me. I had to like hit him. I had to hit him with the money back like 2 hours later because it took so long for the Bitcoin to come out of my treasure. But anyway, so Bored Apes had run up like crazy. Bored Ape Kennel Club, the dogs, the airdrop was like a 3 or 4 ETH floor, right? Everything Bored Ape was a complete no-brainer. I was pissed I didn't have a Bored Ape. I knew I wanted a mutant. Everyone thought that the mutants were just going to be an airdrop like the Kennel Club. No one thought that the public was going to be able to mint mutants, but it was a stealth drop on a Saturday night. I literally happened to be on my computer. I had plans later that night, but I hadn't left yet. And all of a sudden it was like the public can mint Bored Ape Yacht Club, Mutant Apes. And I know that you have a story like this too, where you were about to take a bath and the same kind of thing happened to you. So it was an extremely high conviction play, extremely high conviction, but there still was risk, right? It was still 2.825 ETH. And at that time, if you priced it in US dollars, it's like 10 grand, right? I'm not rich. So 10 grand at that time was like, it's kind of crazy. You know what I mean?
Especially compared to the sizing of your other bets. This was a high, you were sizing up very high compared to like how much you would normally want to put into a project. So not only were you sizing up, but also there was some risk involved, but you offset that mentally because of your conviction in Bored Ape Yacht Club.
Exactly.
Which is huge.
Which is massive, right? And so want to talk about your bet on this one?
Well,
or a different example.
Like still calculating like the risk of your buy. So like minting a Mutant Ape Yacht Club is substantially lower risk than minting just the project that happens to pop into our Discord that people are talking about and we're trying to mint, right? So when you're making a buy, you can make different buys and adjust your bet sizing based on the risk of your buy. So for example, if you buy something off of secondary that's held a price for a very long time. So let's just pick one random like example, like Cool Cats, right? Sure. Cool Cats has been ranging. It goes up and down by 20-30% swings. But with Cool Cats, you're not going to lose 50% of your value on that bet in 2 days, right? Unless something catastrophic would happen. It's a low likelihood versus minting something and losing 50% of your money instantly or very quickly is definitely possible. It's happened to me before where it's just gone like that. Like you're 50% below mint price, you've lost 50% of your back. So like when you're properly sizing your bets, you also need to be calculating the risk of your buys. What do you, if it's a high risk buy, you shouldn't be allocating as much. If it's a lower risk buy, you can allocate a little bit more and know your money's a little bit safer. Like look at punks, Pio. Punks have gone from 144 ETH down to, last I checked, 59 ETH. Crazy. First of all, that's a brutal drop. It's now in the 50s, and apes are also in the 50s. So that's wild in and of itself. But why I bring that up is from 144 ETH down to 59 ETH, you had like 3 months to sell, three and a half months to sell. It was a slow, steady decline, right? 2 weeks ago, you could have gotten out for 80 ETH. You know what I mean? Like a month and a half ago, you could have gotten out for 120. It took a long time for it to retrace down to these lows. So like the risk on buying a punk, but once again, the ETH is higher, right? So the size of the bet is insane. But speaking of maybe getting out of punks a little bit earlier and how much more money you'd have, that brings us to number 5, which is cutting your losers, which is something that I'm actually really bad at. So Pia, I think you should like cut off, like talk about this first. Just like how do you look at cutting your losers? Is there like a percentage drop? You know what I mean? Does it depend on the project?
So this is I mean, let's just be honest. This is a tough subject. Cutting your losers is not something anybody is like super thrilled to do. You're inevitably going to make mistakes when trading in any market. There's no one bats 1,000. That's like a ridiculous, idea. And just like baseball, right? Batting 30%. Well, if you batted 30% in the NFT space, but those 30% are all like home runs, like we're talking about, which can totally happen, then you're probably pretty happy about it as long as you're calculating risk right. So you're going to have losers if you play this game, and that's something that you need to understand. You're also probably going to sell something for a loss because you think it's a loser, and then it's going to come back and you'll feel like a loser at that point, right? So that's something that can happen, right? My thing about cutting losers is that there are times that you have to do it. It's easier to do right after you smash a home run or you lock in a nice win, because then you're like, oh, I'm offsetting the taxes a little bit. Let me get this thing out of my wallet and get something for it, right? But when those losses are fresh, it can be tough to get rid of them. What I would say is that if it's something that you don't have conviction in and it was just kind of a wild swing, I'd cut it as soon as possible and just totally move on. And that's a mistake that I made in the past. I didn't do that, right? I bought lousy projects. One project I bought to the tune of I put up like 1.2 ETH, 1.3 ETH, which was like definitely a considerable bet for me at the time. And it basically went to zero. But I could have recouped a half ETH for it a weekend or 0.3 ETH a weekend, and I basically ended up recouping like 0.1 ETH from like a 1.3 ETH bet. So it's like, what was the point of that? What was the point of like slowly watching that thing die? I should have gotten out, pronto.
Yeah, I love that thought process, and I love that you also tied it to the conviction level in the project. Like if you have low conviction in the project, cut your bags and move on. There's times when cutting your bags, like you said, are going to be brutal. If you bought NFT worlds at 0.25 and you cut them at the bottom at 0.07 and then watch them go up to 1 ETH, your stomach's in knots. You know what I mean? So like cutting your losers is going to be a painful strategy sometimes. But if you don't have high conviction in a certain project, or you were just trying to get in flip and it went the other way, like I've had opportunities where I had zero conviction in a project. I could have cut it at a 20-30% loss and I let it just drop to a negative 75%. That's 50% value that I could have brought back in, and that keeps the liquidity in your bag good, and that keeps you moving on and making money, which is what a lot of us are here for.
Exactly. And if you sort of think about it like a journey, right? Taking the liquidity out and applying that to a different path can be a massive shift. So even though you bought something for a half ETH and you're selling it for 0.25 ETH, a 50% loss. Oh my God, that sounds terrible. Oh no. Well, guess what? Then that 0.25 goes into a new project that mints and you 3x on that. You kind of recouped what you lost, right? So
Exactly. You can get that half an ETH out, throw it into something else, and you're back to square. Versus letting that just drain to 0.1, it's going to take you a lot longer.
it has to do with staying quick on your feet, which is something that you've preached quite a bit. It's something that I've developed more recently, but definitely felt like I had anvils on my feet for a while at the beginning, like couldn't move. I was in quicksand, you know. You don't want to be in quicksand, man. And speaking of sand, you know, this guy talk about moving fast, and then we'll move on to number 6 here. You know, Meta Facebook news, you know, drops. What's he think? Okay, cool. Buy the sand token because that's the easiest access to sandbox. 3x's, sell it, boom. Buy sandbox land, 10x's or whatever it did.
Yep.
But that was quick. That wasn't like, oh, let me do like weeks of research. It was like, wait. Got to capitalize on this right now. Let's rock and roll.
Totally. And that is I'll tell you what, if you want to look at not cutting your bags well, just go to my OpenSea profile and you can see firsthand what not trimming your bags looks like. And it's not pretty.
I will say, so on that real quick, you have so many NFTs, right? So like,
because a lot of them are just straight zeros, dude.
Literal zero. So why don't you offload them and it's basically like you're just like being lazy about it, right? About offloading them. Is that kind of it, or?
Yeah, I mean, some of them are so low, I don't even know I could properly offload them, but I do probably need to do some harvesting with that new app to harvest some much needed losses. But yeah, I got all sorts of junk floating around in there. But what you said I
was gonna say you have logger.eth.
Yeah, I'm holding out for that, man. That's gonna be a big sell one day to a craft brewing company. You know, come on. Is there some takers out there?
That's a really good one.
Is there some? Then we have number 6, which is reading the NFT market, and you know that was sort of what you were talking about with sand. You know, if you're able to read the overall markets and apply it to NFTs, that's a huge way to make some money. But then also just understanding the NFT market and how it's operating in general is a good way for you to figure out where you should be focusing your efforts, right? So there's reading the NFT market could be in a broader sense. So it could be like understanding that the projects on ETH may not be appreciating super well, but the projects on Solana are super hot right now, right? Reading that and then adjusting your strategy accordingly could have made you a lot of money. Right now, Gary Vee bought in today. If you go buy a bunch of Solana NFTs right now, what are you doing? Rule number 2, don't buy secondary FOMO hype. But if you were reading the market and you were seeing Solana picking up and you had got in a month ago, 2 months ago, I know that you guys talked about that project, the Dragon project, Boryuku or something.
Dragons.
Yeah. I mean, if you got in that a month or 2 ago, you're sitting real pretty. So reading the NFT market is really important. I think like right now, if you were to read the NFT market, it's that punks are slowly churning down. The top of the market isn't really moving at all. Secondary isn't great. Secondary really isn't a great place to trade. And we're in a little bit of a lull right now, but like minting and flipping season was doing well the past couple of weeks. But like if you understand that like the top end of the market isn't doing too hot, then you're probably not going to make a 6 ETH bet on Cool Cats right now. You know what I mean? You're probably going to want to hold that ETH back and make another move that could have higher ROI.
Yeah, I think about having that ETH. What happened 3 days ago is Sandbox announced that as part of their integration with Polygon Layer 2, and they're basically moving the whole ecosystem to Polygon Layer 2, you can stake into a liquidity pool and farm sand with a Sandmatic pair. So I know I'm kind of going off, right? But that sounds like, and by the way, you make more, you farm more for the first 2 weeks and then the first 4 weeks than you will after that. So it's literally the definition of being early.
Yep.
We're 3 days into the program. Which one sounds better? Buying Cool Cats right now, right? When we don't know what direction the market's going in, or getting in super early to a super high conviction play and basically doing like a DeFi farming operation. So,
and that's huge what you just said there, because that's a part of reading the NFT market. Part of reading the NFT market, and NFT maxis, unfortunately, may not like this, but part of reading the NFT market is sometimes knowing like, I don't see enough opportunities in NFT projects right now for me to deploy my whole bag. So then I should be taking a portion of my bag and making investments in other areas of the crypto sector. So like what you're doing with the Sandmatic pair, you're saying, hey, I have this ETH sitting here and I don't have a high conviction play in the markets I want to make right now. I might as well get some utility out of it. So that is, in a broader sense, also reading the NFT market, when to deploy all of your capital, when to keep some on the sidelines, when to keep a lot on the sidelines.
Absolutely. And so like real quick, on buying at the right, or I guess we're not there yet. So yeah,
let's go there right now.
Okay. So buying at the right price, number 7, which I'll load up on the screen right now. I have an NFT on, the history of an NFT right there that's in my wallet. It's a dead fella on the screen. Okay. So this is the second dead fella that I bought. I bought the first one at 0.1. So I was early to dead fellas. My guy Paper D put me on. Shout out to Paper D. I don't fade that guy. And so dead fellas bounce between 0.1 and 0.3 over and over again, like with the NFT market. It was just like this bounce back and forth for a while. And like the second time I was like, I want more exposure to this thing. It looks like this guy bought it at 0.25. So at that time, that was the wrong price, right? Now, if he had held, it would have been the right price, right? But at that time, 0.25 was the wrong price. He sold it to me for a loss at 0.17. That was definitely the right price for me, because it did end up going to 1.7 ETH. That was the top. So that's a 10x from where I bought it, right? That's an example of buying at the right price. And this was a project that had already seen 0.3 multiple times by the time that I bought it. So I bought it half off. I didn't buy the local top at 0.3, although if I had done that and then waited, it would have still worked out and it would have still been a good buy. But buying at the right price, to me, is very much so like the same thing as either getting in early or just buying bottoms versus tops on the secondary, which with that NFT worlds kind of price action that you talked about going down to 0.07, sounds like that was a pretty good time to buy it since it's 1 ETH now.
Very much so. And I mean, buying at the right price is huge because it also influences the percentage gains that you can get, right? If you got in on Bored Ape Yacht Club at 5 ETH, you're still very happy right now. You're up 10x. But if you had gotten in at 0.5, you're up 100x. The price that you buy it at can fundamentally change your ability to make profit in the end when you're like dealing in the 0 to 3 ETH range, right? Like a lot of projects just aren't going to be able to break past 1 ETH. It's just a fact. It's just a psychological pricing wall, the 1 ETH pricing wall, right? So a lot of projects, if you're getting in and you're getting in at 0.75, you may not lose money, but you may not just make money. You may just be ranging between 0.5 and 1 ETH for 2 or 3 months, right? So getting in at the right price is also like getting in at the right time, which is getting in before something appreciates to where it should be, and then it may sit there for a really long time. You can look at a lot of the great projects out there that are still doing well, but they've sat in a range. They haven't broken out for 2 or 3 months. Your money's just sitting there, not doing anything. So, buying at the right price, you're going to be able to realize a lot of those gains. Now, obviously, if you're holding something for long-term gains over a year, you don't need to sell it just because it's sitting necessarily. But the point being that if you buy it at the local top where it's going to sit for 2 or 3 months, you've made nothing.
Exactly. I have the chart for NFT worlds pulled up. If you look at this, like this is, a hindsight type of thing where it's like, some people bought this top right here and probably felt pretty lousy this whole time, like this 1 month period where, it just wasn't worth what they paid for it. It was like probably a 50, 75% capitulation from what they paid for it. And then look at where they're at now if they held it, right? So buying at the right price is important also for the psychological part, because if you buy here, you watch it rip up, you choose not to sell, it comes back down, it's still at the number you paid for it, rips up again. Maybe you sell this time, maybe you don't. Still at the number that you paid for it. This is like the diamond handers from Bored Ape Yacht Club and CryptoPunks. You don't care that much about CryptoPunks going from over 100 ETH to something in the 50s if you paid a half ETH for it 3 years ago when ETH was like 300
exactly
bucks, right?
Versus some people that are down $300,000 on their buy. And that NFT world thing that you pulled up was a great example, because like the people that bought the initial FOMO early on at 0.7 or 0.8, they've held for 3 months, and they're only up 20-30% right now. They may even be down in USD terms because of ETH pulling back, versus the person that accumulated at 0.07 is sitting on a 12x. So the price that you buy at influences whether you're a winner or you're a loser in a lot of markets, whether you're the one holding the bag or you're the one sitting on 10x gains.
Exactly. And one last thing, and I'm not even doing this to like, rub it in your face, speculator.
Yeah, I'm down on this. It's brutal, dude. I bought it at 4.4. I did not buy it at the right price.
Yeah, so Doodles is one where I should have bought it at the right price twice. I'm such
0.8.
Well, 0.9, I was sitting there like, oh, it's going to go to 0.8. Who cares?
Trying to swing trade it.
Like, what? Like, this had success written all over it, and I was being fickle over 0.1 ETH on something that was almost 1 ETH. It was the stupidest thing ever. Could have bought it at 0.9, chose not to. It rips to 4. Okay, so, okay, cool. Then it pulls back to 2.4. I do the same thing again. I'm like, oh, it's going to go to 2.2, 2.3. Ridiculous. It goes to 4 again. I know you made the mistake of buying it there, but at least it's a great project that can be a long-term hold. But It's an example of me not buying at the right price twice, even though I had high conviction.
And me recently not buying at the right price, which was, buying at the top. Such an insane. Hopefully that collab news that's supposed to come out at least lets me get back to break even. But yeah,
you will. You'll be good with this one. This one sitting in the bag will be good to go.
Yeah, I'm fine holding it. But still, it would have been nicer to get in at 3 ETH. It would have been a better price. And then so we got 3 more left, and we can move some through these like pretty quickly. We put the more interesting points at the beginning of the conversation. But number 8 is tracking and analyzing your trades. This is something that I'm personally not very good at, but I do use Nansen to be able to analyze my trades and understand where I make the most of my money from, where my biggest losses were. If you don't know, if you're not analyzing your decisions and looking back and tracking, then it's going to be very hard for you to improve. Like I've looked at Nansen and I've seen that. That's why I knew coming into this, my biggest gainers have been buys and sells within 7 days. Like it's actually like probably closer to 70% of my profits, 60 to 70% of my profits are buys and sells in the first 7 days. So, and that's the first 7 days of a project, not even like me getting in and out 7 days. So what does that tell you? If 60 to 70% of my gains are from buying a project and selling in the first 7 days, what should I be doing? I should be focusing all of my energy on new projects coming out and buying them and knowing when to flip them, right? And some of my biggest losers or things that I haven't realized losses are on things that I bought at mint and I didn't sell within the first 7 days, and now they're bags. So like and Wappy, I'm not good at tracking stuff either, but like look at your Nansen, like analyze your Nansen and see where your gainers have come from and see where your losses have come from. And you'll probably see a pattern that can help you decide the number one point of this conversation, which is finding your optimal trading strategy. So like, I know I shouldn't be picking up projects after they've been around for 3 months and trying to swing trade, unless I have a high conviction move, like I did with the Bored Ape Dogs, where I had like a clearly easy profit opportunity. But I know most of my gains are buying a brand new project and selling them into the hype within the first 7 days. That's probably where I'll keep making my money. That's probably what I should focus on. And I should probably focus less on other things.
For sure. And I should definitely look at this at Nansen and figure out my stuff, because I can only imagine the dumpster fire that's waiting for me over there. Is this also how you know that buying in the 3 ETH range is not the ideal price point for you?
Oh yeah, 100%. Because I can look at all the trades like Loot that I bought at 7 ETH and sold for 5 ETH. Like I've made a lot of losses up there. The only outlier is my CryptoPunk trades, which were above 3 ETH and very well, but that's the exception to the rule. Generally, when I buy something over 3 ETH, it doesn't work out for me well. Generally, when I buy something above 1 ETH, I'm like a 50-50 batter. So like 3+ ETH, I'm a net loser for sure. 1 to 3 ETH, I'm probably a 50-50 batter. But below 1 ETH, and specifically below 1 ETH when I'm minting or flipping within the first 7 days, is a huge percentage of my gains. And I know that because you can just look through all of the random projects that are,
Koalas.
yeah, Koala Intelligence Agency, biggest percentage gainer. You know what I mean? Dark Super Bunnies. Most people out there probably don't even remember the Super Bunny project.
I
They
remember that.
remember that they minted 5 Super Bunnies, and then they 5K, and then they minted another 5K and called them Dark Super Bunnies, and they were gonna battle it out in some random ass game, and like the art was super like, not, I don't want to say mediocre, that's mean, but like the art wasn't like, or the roadmap wasn't anything you're like, oh my god, this is like so sick, I need to be in this, and it's at 0.029 pre-reveal. When I sold all of them, they were at 0.3. So like,
Oh my God.
people that didn't sell pre-reveal are sitting on negative 90%. And I got out with like 5-6x gainers. I made like 7 ETH off of this project. Dark Super Bunnies, it doesn't exist anymore. Doesn't matter. But like, that's just one of my like, that's in my top 10 like wins by project is Dark Super Bunnies.
How many did you mint?
30.
I mean, that's hilarious. To make that bet is absolutely hilarious.
I was so degen in August. So absolutely degen in August. Like, August was a insane. Yeah. Scientific says that I think they ran up to a 0.65 pre-reveal. It was some disgusting amount of number. Yeah. Koala Intelligence Agency, I minted like 30 or something. And these projects were within like 2 weeks of each other. So I hit these dingers out of the park, like back to back. And that's actually why I got so wrecked in either, yeah, I think it was September or October, was my worst month ever NFT trading. I lost probably
because he had house money. You were playing with money.
Yeah, exactly. I probably lost 15 ETH in one of those months, like net across the board. But I've made it back. Don't worry about me. Don't you don't have to worry about me for Christmas. But it was the reason why I was trading so degen is because of those wins in August, where I just like, my brain was programmed to think like this is possible.
Yeah, like this makes sense. Well, look, number 9, diversify.
Yeah, and I mean, we can go over that quickly, but that's kind of the same thing as how to properly size your bets. It's like, you want to be taking your shots across a multitude of projects. You don't want to go all in on one project just because you don't know what's going to happen. Now, if you only have like 0.5 ETH to play with total, then maybe you do have to make an all-in bet, right? Or you got to go over to Solana where you can get more stack size. But yeah, diversify. And the last one we can kick over to you is locking in profit. So it's kind of the opposite of 7, buying at the right price, is 10, locking in profits, taking money off of the table.
I have so many damn examples of not doing this properly. And I see someone in the chat just provided an example that I wasn't a part of, but I followed closely because in real life friends of mine were in it. So Crypto Groot said he minted 4 Moody Crows on IMX for 0.2 ETH, didn't sell any. They went up to 1 ETH and now they're at 0.1. How many times have we heard that story that something went way up, you didn't sell it, and it went back down, right? And we even heard this on our Twitter Spaces. This artist Arena, shout out to Arena, is actually a very skilled collector. She has like a bunch of good stuff. She's got a bunch of dead fellas, cool cats, things like that. Didn't sell any when cool cats were above 10 ETH, and she said this time next bull run she is going to lock in profits. Like, she's going to do it. You have to keep in mind, this is collectibles trading. Right?
Yep.
This isn't a company that's making self-driving cars that run on state-of-the-art batteries and it's just going to spread all over the world, right? That's something that you can just, buy the dip on over and over again and you're going to be good long-term. This dead fella, we don't know. Look, shout out to dead fellas. I have my dead fella. I'm a longtime dead fella holder. We're having Betty on the show tomorrow. So shout out to dead fellas. But I'm using dead fellas as an example because this is one where I bought it at 0.1. and it went up to 1.7. And I was like, I got diamond hands. I'm riding this thing. This is the next thing to north of 10. would it have really hurt that bad to sell one at 1.7 or sell two at 1.7? Same thing happened with Peaceful Groupies, identical, bought in at basically the same number, less than 0.2, bought multiple at less than 0.2. It went up to 0.7. Peaceful Groupies is at 0.19 right now. What was the point of not selling at 1.7? You know,
And
I
and
can go
this
on and
one,
on this shit.
oh yeah, I mean that thing pumped to 0.17. I bought some at 0.5. That was a 50% loser for me. But what's interesting is that there's a lot of talk in the chat. The lock and profits and Diversify brought up some things. Crypto Trader said, "Diversify, what's that? I lost $150,000 on my first NFT investment back in September. Oof." I'm
What'd you
sorry to hear
buy?
that. I was about to say September. There's times in markets where it doesn't matter. You're just unlucky because you're getting in at literally the worst time. Pio and I were at Nifty Gateway together during like the
Yeah.
Nifty Gateway big like pump and then subsequent crash.
Yeah.
And people that got in late March, early April, there was nothing you can do. Those people took just 50, 60, 80% losses on their bags because they just September was similar on OpenSea. It just I was just talking about it. I had a terrible month on September. But yeah, that's rough crypto. Hope you make it back. C Crumb says Oni one F my life. Could have sold my rares for 15 ETH.
Oh my God.
15 ETH. Now those rares are probably down in the low single digits. Another guy says, a guy or gal, Motara Jiv 123 says, bought Noundles 0.13, went to almost 0.9, didn't sell. Now it's a dud.
Well, look, so I learned from my mistakes just to show everybody, and shout out to the guy that talked about Noundles. Look who else bought Noundles, me. Look what price I bought Noundles at, 0.13. So you and me, we both bought at 0.13, right? I learned from my mistakes. You still had to make the mistakes. I bought two at 0.13, one at 0.135, and one more at 0.175. What did I ship them at?
Oh,
shipped them at 0.67.
Let's go.
I just shipped them all at 0.67, 0.72.
Nice little 5Xer.
It's a big win. You know, it's a good win, man. And yeah, I mean, I had to learn from that. My Bitcoin Angel back to the Nifty Gateway days, that thing went up to like $3,500 off of a $700, $800 purchase. I had two of them, didn't sell, ended up selling them for like $2,200. Like, what was the point of that? You know, like I should have sold them.
Von Go sounds like me, says, I've made every mistake possible. Minted degens, sold NFT worlds near the bottom. I did some of that too. It hurts. Had 18 Vox collectibles. Sold them all way too early. I had literally the same. So we sound very similar. Left like $100,000 on the table. Sounds accurate. So Vaughn, it sounds like we may be long lost brothers. But here's the thing: if you're making mistakes, it means you're in the game. And a lot of your mistakes that you listed off, you know, or at least half of them you sold too early. But if you're selling too early at a profit, you're still making money.
And you're going to make mistakes. So like, it's not like you're not going to make mistakes. So just, understand you're going to make mistakes. Huxley, right? I minted 3 instead of 5. That felt like a mistake at the time. It probably was, because if you minted 5, you basically had a 1 ETH exit immediately. I sold 2 out of the 3 Huxleys because they were virgin Huxleys. They hadn't been used or burned or whatever, for a quarter ETH each. And I was like, I'll hold the third one. I listed at 1.25. I was like, I'll wait for the long term. I don't think that this is going to sell at 1.25. I probably would have just been better off shipping it at 0.25, 2.5x off the mint cost. Hindsight's 2020.
Who knows? Maybe it gets bought out by Marvel or something. Anything is possible in this world.
For sure. That's
looks
true,
like right. Chris Cannon said he went from hodling multiple and trimming while riding raves to selling everything at a profit and keeping one to stay in. So sounds like Chris is doing the same thing Pio did. Mint and flip season. Minting and flipping, getting in and out. Nash says, I thought I sold too early on my pre-sale SVS at 4 ETH profit. Almost slammed my head against the wall when it hit 3 ETH after a month, but now it's on the low. Hey, that's really good conviction, because what you could have done is you could have FOMO'd back in and lost all of your gains. Instead, you locked in a 4 ETH profit, and on a long-term horizon, it was a good move.
There you go. One last thing, this one, I think that this will probably end up working out for us. I hope. But properties, right? It felt like such a good play, stellar team. The floor, the peak floor before reveal was a quarter ETH, and you and me both minted a bunch. We could have just offloaded them for basically a 3x at least at a quarter ETH.
Could have sold high, bought back in low if we had really high conviction.
Exactly. I mean, it's all good. I'm cool with this one. But yeah, I mean, that it is what it is. Hopefully this one follows a similar trajectory to NFT worlds and hits a half ETH or a 1 ETH floor, and then we'll be smiling ear to ear.
Yeah, just don't look at it for a while until the bricks comes out. Ryan Sutherland with a nice donation. Ryan's our biggest supporter on YouTube. Thank you so much, man.
Him and Lego Batman. Him and Lego Batman.
Yeah. Our top supporters really appreciate that. You all are the best. And we can end with Dragic said, I went on a killing spree last month, and now I'm getting effed in every hole this month. That is NFT trading for you, going from being on the top to being in the absolute gutter. It happens to every NFT trader out there. You're going to have your good days, your bad days, your good weeks, your bad weeks, your good months, your bad months. And eventually, if this thing lasts long enough, we'll have good years and bad years. Still in the first year, but let's see what 2022 has to bring for us.
Should be crazy. Allison said, could have sold a Twitter NFT at 60 ETH, still holding. Hey, shout out to Allison. She's a tank. She's a beast. Unbelievable. I hope you get that back. I know you'll get that back. And Lego Batman, thank you, man. Wow, you didn't have to. We wanted to shout him out. He's obviously one of the top two. Wow. It goes without saying. Lego Batman, thank you. You're muted. We can't hear you.
I said, we'll make sure to figure out a way to take care of you in the future. We have big things on the horizon.
Absolutely. Well, everybody, thanks so much for watching. As usual, you know what you got to do. Hit the subscribe button. Come on, just do it. I know not every single person that's watching is subscribed. Just do it. What's the big deal? What's the big deal? Hit the subscribe button. It's not a lot of effort. You're not going to be burning crazy cows. It's not a hit workout. You just hit the subscribe button. You help us out a lot. If you're watching the content, I'm assuming you're getting something out of it. You can learn from our dumb mistakes that we've made, and maybe learn from our occasional wins too. And of course, lick the like button. There's a bunch of people watching right now. I want to see a bunch of likes. Lick the like button. We appreciate it. And we'll see you guys in the Discord. Thank you, Speculator, for rocking with me on this one. This was a fantastic episode. Great tips.
Yep. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Have a good day.